Welcome to Sunlit Freedom, the only podcast in the world where every episode is out in the sun. On this episode, I'm going to tell you about how I made my first dollar on the internet and how it led to a nearly decade long career of me making money and traveling the world. I've traveled 50 countries over the past 9 years, and all of that is just thanks to the internet. I've never worked in an office. I've never had a corporate job. I just used the internet. And this is going to be that story. So the year was 2016. I was in Goa Engineering College, and they were organizing a type of field trip. Everyone from the trip was going somewhere. I gave the flyer of that to my parents and got them to pay for it, but didn't book that journey. Instead, I decided to go backpacking India on my own. I don't know where that came from, but I felt a bit like of an outsider, so I just wanted to go backpacking around India on my own. And it was the first time in my life that I stayed in hostels, that I met hippies, that I basically hung around in positive communities that didn't feel like the high school culture I grew up in. It was an incredible experience, even though it was just 2 weeks, especially because I didn't have a plan. I basically did one day at the time and winged it the entire 2 weeks. And then I came back, and very quickly, the contrast between a positive world and a negative world smacked me right in the face. 2 weeks later, I went on a 4 or 5 day trip to a hippie town in India called Hampi. I told my parents, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to be in university for this weekend and I'm staying at the hostel, the dorms." And basically, I went to Hampi. And when I was on my way back, I was thinking, what if I just disappeared? What if I just vanished? What if I just didn't take the last bus home? But I did. And I came back and I decided that I'm going to try and find a way to escape this world. So then I started going to my university library and just Googled, how do I start a business? How do I make money online? How do I, what are the ways to make money traveling? Read every single blog post. Wandering Earl, Expert Vagabond, Nomadic Matt, all of these people just read blog post after blog post after blog post. Followed open Instagram, followed all the business accounts. I remember weird random stories. For example, I took a webinar from this woman that was giving a workshop of how she was running a drop shipping e-commerce store where she sold contact lenses, colored contact lenses around Hollywood. So she got hyper focused and she decided, I am going to corner and sell colored contact lenses around Halloween in the US. And she managed to grow a large business just by focusing on something so small as that. And when I saw that people could just create businesses on the internet, people could just do stuff, I realized that that's the way I got to go. So I thought that I would build a business and start something during the off times in the library in university. A week later, I basically got so frustrated with the bullshit that was the entire system that I decided to drop out. I remember my dad asked me, "What's my business plan?" Like, you say you're going to do this online thing, but what's your plan? Like, tell me the step by step thing you're going to do on how you're going to make money. And I came up with some version of like an e commerce store product, how I would use ads to get customers, blah, blah, blah. I never did any of that. But because I knew that once I started moving on this, the way I found what I actually would do would be very different. So it was March 23rd that I bought my first domain name. March 23rd, 2016. Think Travel Lift Grow. That was my travel blog. I bought it, and over the next week, sitting in my bedroom drinking coffee, every time I went out, my mom yelling at me, calling me a disgrace from my to the family. I got that site up, and within the before the end of the month, I got 3 or 4 articles out. Here are the actual hit topics that I published my first articles. Backpacking. How old should you be? 5 tips on how to lose weight in the gym. Weight loss without giving up pizza. So, the most mundane topics you can think of, 200, 250 words articles was what got me started. And within a week or two, I had ads running and I made my first dollar. Actually, no, I didn't make a dollar. I made 36 cents. I made 36 cents. And to see the 36 cents on an AdSense account was so exhilarating. To just know that, wait, I just wrote articles. Somebody somewhere in the world found my blog post from Facebook or something, clicked a link, clicked on an ad, and that's real money. That's the first moment it went from it's real. Less than a month later, a few weeks later, I left Goa with the backpack and $200 in savings that I had from birthday gifts and basically went to Nepal. So I left India after only having made 36 cents online. I lied and told my friends back then that, yeah, I'm on Upwork and I also got freelance clients. Because I actually thought back then that if I told people that I'm also freelancing, that I'm also doing these other things, they would think that I'm less crazy. But I'm an 18-year-old dropping out to travel the world. I don't think anyone thought that it was less crazy. So I pretty much wasted all my time acting as if I had to caveat the walls. So the reality I'm telling you, and the reality I should have told back then was I made a dollar and I dropped out of college and I left the country because, and here's this thing, I knew I would figure it out. I knew that if I could make a dollar, I could make 10. If I could make 10, I could make 100. If I could make 100, I could make 1,000. And if I could make 1,000, I could make 10,000. And that's pretty much exactly what I did. So that blog over the next 1.5 year ended up being one of the top 100 travel blogs in the world. It grew to 100,000 readers. It ended up opening endless doors for me. But it didn't immediately go there. So I was in Nepal. I had bills to pay. I had food to pay for. So what do I do? So I was sitting in a hostel in Kathmandu, Aluba 4000. And there was a group of backpackers sitting on the other side. I was sitting on my laptop working on an article, I think titled Best Travel Books to Read to Inspire You. And I noticed this group, they were talking, and the conversation seemed interesting. So I was like, I went over to the table and I said, hey, can I join you guys? And of course, they said yes. So we chatted, and unlike most people back then, when I told them that, yeah, I dropped out of college, I'm going to build a travel blog and travel, they didn't say, oh, are you sure that's a good idea? They were like, damn, that's cool. That's impressive. Go for it. They had positivity. They were maybe a bit like, wow, that's intense, but they weren't depressed about it. They could see a positive vision. It may not succeed, but they could give it a chance. Funnily enough, that night I was talking to one of the person from the group and he said, hey Jeremy, I like your website. Can you build me a website? And that's how I actually made my first dollar. Not my first dollar online, my first dollar ever was building a photography site for this guy. Over the Next month, I went to this other city and just realized I can build websites. So I went to every cafe that existed in this town that had a Facebook page so that they knew that they needed to be online, but they didn't have a website yet. So I was basically selling to people already convinced about the internet. And by the end of this day of walking around, pitching cafe to cafe, I got another client. So then it was great. So I got a few clients. I'm building websites, working on the blog in the background. When I left India and was later in Southeast Asia, I realized I could network on Facebook groups as well. So I had a mix of working, building websites for food, working, building websites for accommodation, building it for a few couple bucks here and there while trying to keep my costs low. And then gradually had enough experience that I started being able to show websites as my portfolio. And that then I started just doing it on the internet, which made it much more easier because then I could work from anywhere in the world. However, around all this time in the background, I was still working on my blog. I grew my blog. I got very structured in the particular markets I was targeting. I was very good at SEO. I was very good at socials. And I was very good at PRs because I was an 18-year-old kid from India dropping out of university. Newspapers could not get enough of me. So it made it very easy for me to get backlinks because which then made it very easy to do SEO. So I, I stacked the odds in my favor to make it happen. And I grew my blog, grew my audience. And when I just turned 20, so 2 years after I left, I ended up becoming the head of SEO at Founder Magazine. So this world, it was a completely different world to what existed before. And it all started from 36 cents. But there's a story here. And one of the lessons from this is the counterfactual of if I had tried to do this while keeping the old world alive, which was I believed a different world was possible. All I did was Google make money traveling. The first article said, yeah, you can become a consultant, you can start a business, you can start a blog. And all I said was, those people say I can, why can't I just do it? And everyone around me just said, what are you going to believe a random person on the internet with a random blog? And I was like, it's a blog. Just start the website. What's so complicated? And I did try to do it while maintaining the old world for a short while. For about a week, I was sitting in the library while still going to university. But what did that mean? That means being in the bus for 2 hours. That means being in university for 8 hours when there's so much chaos around me, when there's so much noise, when there's so much in group dynamics where everyone is like, what are you doing? Disturbing you, want to talk to you, questioning if what you think is the right decision, telling you why it's not a good idea, why you're wasting time on stuff like that. All of that unnecessary. So by just freeing myself from this world, by just at the age of 18 saying, oh yeah, the internet's all that matters. Jobs don't matter, degrees don't matter, the old world of basically credentialism, yeah, zero time. It's not that I'm going to try and do the new world thing on the side. The moment the world shows you another opportunity, it's always a choice to just say, yeah, you know that old world that existed, I don't have to think about it at all. I can just decide to put all my attention into this new world. And that makes it so much easier because what you're choosing not to do is not waste your time on bullshit. Because whenever I've had these conversations on time, on doing the right stuff, people rarely ever believe that this thing will work and I can put all my energy in this. We live in a you always got to hedge your bet societies because what if you're wrong? Yeah, I mean, a website versus a degree, how do you know a website is better? And all of these ideas are ideas which I don't think are relevant today. It's, yes, I believe this world is dying and I believe this world will grow. But I can't completely let go of the old world because what if I'm wrong? What if this new world is just a delusion in my mind? I mean, everyone around me is saying this new world won't matter. Everyone is saying it's bullshit. So, got to spend 90% of my time still in the old world. I'll pay attention only 10% to the new world. And that was something I chose not to do. I chose not to ever do that back in the day. And I choose never to do that today, which is when you see an opportunity, when you see a new world, when you see a new vision, when you make your first dollar on the internet, when you make a first dollar on the business that you actually want to work on, why would you ever, especially if you're young, especially when you have options, ever accommodate the old world? Don't. You just realize that you have to let go of the old world and focus all your attention on the new world. And that's so much of what the transitions we're going through in society is. You need to be able to see the $36,000 in the 36 cents. I was able to see this much clearly because when I was 17, I deadlifted 200 kilos. You don't accidentally wake up one day and deadlift 200 kilos. You go to the gym, you join the gym, you deadlift 10 kilos, and then you deadlift 20, and then maybe 30, 50. And after you deadlifted 50, you might focus a little bit and you might be able to go to 80. And then you might reach 100. And then you might be stuck at 100 for a while. But then you might get hyper focused. And then you'll go 100, 120, 140, 180, 160. You sometimes come down. And then you reach 200. That lesson, which I learned from being in the gym 2 years before I dropped out of college, was you need to be able to see something before it happens. Can I see a dollar becoming $10,000? Or do I need to wait for it to happen? Because if I need to wait for it to happen, I'm always going to spend most of my time in the old world. I'm always going to spend most of my time in the world which I know is dead, which I know is failing, which I know is collapsing. I'm always going to keep that alive because, yeah, it's still $1. It's still 36 cents. Why would are you really going to give up everything everyone around you told you for 33 cents? Yep, because that's a baby. That's a tiny baby that can grow into something bigger. It's a little seed. You just plant it and it can grow into something so much bigger. But if you don't see the seed in the tree, you will never ever plant the seed. At the end of the day, you get the life you want by forcing it into reality. And my way of forcing it was realizing that this 36 cents could grow into a brand new life. People's opinions don't matter when it comes to the discussions. I don't wait for Indians to act as if university doesn't matter. I just drop out and say that it doesn't matter and create the world I want, which is 18-year-old Indians can drop out. I've done it. You just do it. You don't care about how many people believe it can happen. You just do it and then tell everybody else that they can obviously do it. And in that world, I'm going to shift 100% of my focus, my intention, my energy. And if you do that, if you don't wait for the world to change, and if you're going to choose to force your change on the world, you'll find the exceptions and you'll be the exceptions. Jeremy out.